right, let's talk about a topic that's been on the minds of a lot of other podcasts and different conversations I've been in. Are men losing their masculinity? So before I get to the topic, let's just define masculinity for a second. What does it mean to be masculine?
I think that's like one of the most important questions in this argument, or in this,
Yes.
well, I guess it's an argument,
Yeah.
is that it might be like people are misinterpreting the definition of masculinity. And I think what it is like a collection of traits that are traditionally associated with being masculine, but masculinity isn't necessarily like one personality trait. Maybe it's better to define like
let's talk about the traditional
traits.
stereotype masculine.
Yeah.
So being assertive, being direct,
Competitive.
Competitive.
Competitive came up. What else?
Being strong, being
Physically
the leaders.
strong? Physically?
Confident.
Maybe physically, because mentally, I think females are probably
Because
stronger.
masculinity is like a personality discussion. I don't know if it's fit.
I think you can be female. So we have to say masculinity doesn't necessarily mean man or woman.
No.
Masculinity is a trait, because I think you could have females who have traditional
Correct.
masculine traits.
Yeah, definitely. And also masculinity and femininity are not opposites.
Okay.
They're just collections of traits.
Okay.
Like I can be feminine and assertive.
Sure.
So I think that's where like this conversation is taking
So if the
people.
question gets asked on the street,
Yeah.
first word or first sentence comes to your mind when you hear the word masculinity. So to answer to that, to me, I'm thinking about a movie from the 80s.
Okay, like
Or
Rambo.
Scarface, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that, of that strict, strong, provider of the household and all those. That becomes that's how we grew up with the definition of masculinity, and it changed over the
time,
years.
yes.
Over the years, and there are a few others. Okay.
Now, has it changed over time, or has it always existed? But basically, we've said that's not important. That's not important anymore. This is how a man should behave.
We added other traits, if I may, to the definition.
Now, was it we added other traits to masculinity, or to what a man should be, like a male should
Well, I
be?
hope both changed, honestly. Like,
Okay.
I will always advocate for change. Like, no one can be stagnant and set forever. Like, masculinity, I'm sure it was completely different 500 years ago than it is now. And I fucking hope that it is completely different. And I hope it's different again in another 100 years.
So again, going back to what the traditional definition of what it means to be masculine for me, as I was growing up, it meant that you were a man, right? With
Quote unquote.
quote unquote. So they're going to be burly, and they're not going to be as sensitive. They're not going to show their feelings.
Closed off
They're going to be
emotionally.
closed off, but they're going to be providers. They're going to
They don't cry.
They don't cry.
Don't
Yeah,
cry.
that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Men don't cry. They that's not masculine to cry. You're supposed to take care of your family. You go out and work, and you provide,
Right.
and all that stuff. So, but now you're seeing men are being encouraged to talk about their feelings. They're being encouraged to cry, show emotion. They're being encouraged to dress in clothing that were considered feminine. And that's saying that's okay. That's now a man. Like I'm seeing men wear, nail polish, which when I was growing up,
Right.
that just didn't
Right.
happen. Lipstick, jewelry that are considered feminine. So yes, I do think men are now being encouraged not to be so masculine. And then I see females who are taking on the traits that growing
Sure.
up I would have considered to be the trait of a
so
man.
let's stick to the male for this
Yeah.
one, and we'll talk about the female portion maybe in a different podcast. But I appreciate you breaking it down and not holding anything back. I do see society pushing towards a different version of what a man should be, not masculine, but probably many traits that are considered masculine are no longer kind of factors for a male.
man.
Now, what's been interesting is, and why I wanted to talk about this for a bit is, sure, having a person be in touch with their feminine side and, share their feelings and, communicate really, really effectively, which they're not traditional masculine traits, is what we're being pushed towards. But what I've been noticing recently, right, I'm going to try to be as PC as possible on this, but many people that I know around my age had recently gotten divorced. Many of them would be considered the non-masculine types, right? But they're very friendly, nice, caring husband, loving, but they're not genuine, quote, masculine. And what I've seen with a couple of them, their wives, had affairs with the masculine type, right? And I was shocked when I heard it because I'm like, you guys are such a great couple and A, B, and C, and So one of my friends, hopefully he's not watching it, and if he is, I'm not doing this to kind of criticize or anything. It's just relevant to the discussion. He was telling me about what females are after, right? Subconsciously, psychologically, is the masculine type, right? And if you don't have it, a female over time is not going to be attracted to someone that's not masculine, right? I know we're touching on some touchy subjects here, but I know it's just a sample size of a very small, a few people. But I think I've seen enough for me to think there's something to that where I think humans are humans, right? We have human feelings and emotions and tendencies. I think there is something to that where as much as you like it or hate it, and I've seen a lot of poor guys like really disrespected their wives all throughout their lives. But you know what their wives used to do? They were basically crazy about the husband and put up with every crap that they were faced with. You know what I mean? And I think it was just because
lots of eyebrows raised on this one.
but I'm just saying, like, I've seen too many examples of female just sticking around because I'm like, if it was my sister or my mother, I'm like, why but they stuck around because they wanted that. They just had this natural attraction to masculinity, right?
So being masculine is being a jerk.
Kind of is.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying logically it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's the human like.
No, I think with those women, there may be other issues there.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going to say with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
There could be other issues there that could be for another podcast. Like, do you go after men who are like your father? Do you have daddy issues, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, but I would say my husband is very masculine and in the traditional sense of masculinity. And yeah, he treats me as an equal partner. So maybe, 20 years ago or 40 years ago, that wouldn't have been allowed.
Sure.
But I contribute to the house just as much as he does. And we're in different times. But at the end of the day, I do like that my husband is masculine. I do like he's strong and he's reliable. He's a provider. He's all those things that fit the traditional definition of masculinity, and that is attractive to me.
Bring it on.
I'm kind of
Bring it on.
We want to hear this.
Okay, so from the challenge that I have with this conversation is that it is very it's
Small sample size.
categorizing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's overgeneralizing. We're talking about men and women and assuming that all men are masculine and all women are feminine. And there are so many other factors that should
just to pause for that one. Let's just say not all women are feminine, but an average woman or a very common woman would be more attracted to masculine traits. Forget if the women is feminine or not feminine, but a general woman, again, apologies for the wrong.
Yeah.
For the sake of this conversation,
Yeah.
we're assuming that women are attracted to the more traditionally masculine
Some,
personality
but
types.
Yeah. You don't have to hold anything back.
There's just so many things.
Sure.
I'm like, what path?
What do you?
take?
While let's gather your thoughts.
Let me put this in a different way.
Okay.
I think over time, and in recent years, maybe more so, our society was, this is the norm, these are the exceptions. We're paying too much attention to all the exceptions, blending it in the norm. Now it becomes, we're trying to accept the exceptions. Okay, you should accept the exceptions, which is fine. Exception is becoming a norm. As we're making more exceptions as a norm, it's hard to define what's norm now. So when you're saying the losing masculinity, that okay, To your point that doing crying, showing emotions, all those things were not norm. But now it is norm, but not everybody wants to do it. Should everybody be doing it? We are telling everybody it's okay to cry. I don't want to cry. But if I'm not crying, then question is, okay, you're showing your emotions, which used to be an exception, if I may.
Yeah.
Now we are trying to make all the exceptions, making into norm. Now we are in a cocktail situation to separate or define who's who in the zoo here.
Going on that, I think the norm was always defined as what was prevalent in research throughout history, and conveniently or inconveniently, a lot of the research was based on white male subjects. So like that, I'll just toss that in there. And also the like access or lack thereof of knowledge. So all of these traits could have been prevalent, but it wasn't readily available on mass media for people to see, that there are all of these different types of people and traits, and masculinity and femininity is not clean cut, and it is ever changing. So I think that when people are talking about if we're losing masculinity, I can't say yay or nay, but maybe the conversation is that people who are like what their definition or what they perceive as being masculine is changing because of access to new opinions, new information, and just like scrolling on TikTok all day long. And the more you seek, or the more you are like, I don't agree with this, the more it's going to pop up in the algorithm. So like,
and that's what they're designed to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully this
because
podcast
it's
is
designed to pull out an emotional
Yeah.
response from
yeah,
you.
we
right?
want you to feel
We want you to
angry
feel
about
angry
this.
because then you're gonna
there's a stat,
keep engaging.
fake news gets 6 times more hits than like real
Yeah.
news, right? Or I'm assuming, more provocative, polarizing subjects get 6 times or more views than like a very neutral subject, right?
Yeah.
Probably this one's going to get more views than the other ones. So just to kind of circle back, so we've discussed what masculinity is, in the traditional sense, and there is benefits of putting that aside. That's old, and in with the new. One of the points I was trying to make is the fact that what I'm trying to separate is the conscious and the subconscious, right? Consciously, you would like masculinity to disappear. But I think subconsciously, as human beings, we're wired a certain way where if you showed 5 pictures of females, right? And you broke down, how much they made and what their personality is and blah, 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 blah. And you ask 5 guys, which one would you pick? They're going to pick the prettiest one, right? We're wired in the way where we look at that, right? Whereas females have their own kind of wiring, right? So what
but that's like physical attraction, right? Like I think that has been scientifically proven. Like people in general opt for people with more, symmetrical faces,
true.
right? But
now
that's
I hopefully maybe our producer can put it up on screen. There was a research done where they looked at like the cat, like the things that a male looks for in a woman.
Right.
It's like a very short list, but there is like 87 or 100 plus, maybe not 100, but close to 100 characteristics that a female looks for a man. So it varies a lot more, from female to woman than it does from male to female.
Men are simple creatures.
They are, they are, and I'm not denying it, right?
I think interesting to know that 50 years, 100 years, 200 years ago, what attracted a man to in a woman, is it the same or not?
True.
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. Yeah.
Then the basic nature of human being, male or female, hasn't changed. Society has changed. We have evolved. To your question, is man losing masculinity? I think the word is not losing probably, is it changing?
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to lose here because who's to define the masculinity?
Sure.
So the characteristics in a human being, if it's the same in over the years. So I'm going to give you a quick, silly example. When I used to live in Montreal, I had a friend she's Italian, and we were talking and I told her something silly and she's like, my mom was going to hit me with a broomstick. I'm like, oh, in Italy they have broomstick too? Like it's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the definition, before globalization, before internet, before any of these things, everywhere around the world, in all the countries, definition or the way the male traits and everything I think they were pretty much similar.
I think so.
Even not knowing what's happening on the other side of the world.
Because there was no internet, there was no TV,
Yeah.
the telephone.
Behavior is the same.
Yeah.
Instinct is the same.
Yeah.
But now we're adding things again.
Yeah,
We're
but
making,
what I'm
Right.
trying to say is what we're adding to the mix to get people more conscious and aware. Are they just like conscious and they're just like facades, but inside
There
is
may
who we
be.
are,
There may
and
be.
we're just attracted
I
to the
would
same
not-
thing.
I would not be
and
surprised.
I think-
that's
I
That's
think-
like scary to me.
Yeah.
and
I
it's scary.
think it
And the
is.
challenging
'Cause
part
that means
is,
we are
where will it
incapable
go
of
10 years or
change.
15 or 20 years from now?
but I think
If
that's
we're
true, though.
pretending.
Is it nature versus nurture? Because if it's nature, then like we're just denying our animalistic instincts, and we can never actually change, and this is
Yeah,
all
well,
a facade. And
yeah.
what is real? I'm scared of that.
Yeah.
I hope it's nurture.
Yeah.
And it is this, like me personally, I think it's a societal construct. If you were asking the same question in a more matriarchal society, I wonder if they would be saying the same things. Just to put that out there as
Right.
well. I don't have any facts on masculine and feminine personality traits in a matriarchal society, but
And
Do you,
again,
do
we
you
try-
try to be more masculine around your wife?
Not try.
Okay.
Just whatever comes, it's not that I have again,
Or do you
a
try to
checklist,
hide it?
if I may,
Yeah.
that okay, this is what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, and it comes naturally. Any behavior, any traits, anything that attracts me or that I like, okay, that's a good one. So maybe it comes subconsciously, not that I am trying myself to become like that.
Yeah.
And say like being strict with the children.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do that because it's masculine. No.
Right.
Yeah, because I feel whatever she's doing might be wrong. I have to say something about it to get it corrected. It should come naturally, not trying to be masculine. It's the facade. And if we continue to do that, what did it look like 50 years or 100 years from now, the society and where we are leading? It's all pretentious,
right, it's an
which is scary,
oversimplification too.
which is definitely scary. And trying to make all those exceptions, back to that point, into a norm and trying to something, this is where the problem is, and it could get politically incorrect, if I may. If I do not like something, I should have the right not to like something.
Not in
Question
these
is how I
times.
question is how I express about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like your blue suit. Blue is not my color, as an example. I don't like it. Period. But as soon as I walk in, should I say, "Oh, I don't like blue suit"?
Yeah.
Right?
It
And-
depends on where he puts you in his tree. Are you the roots, the branch, or the leaf?
There you go.
I think what you said made me think of another scenario in that I wonder if it's a matter of where you've put yourself into like a social setting. So let's say your relationship, your marriage, or at work, and you are figuring out what is needed to be done, what is missing, and what personality traits do you have to bring forward to achieve a greater goal. So like disciplining your kids, if your wife is like, I'm just going to buy them everything and we're
Yeah.
going to be best friends, then there does have
like
to
the
be that
opposite for me.
disciplinary.
The opposite.
But right, exactly.
My-
but
my
does
wife's
that make
the-
you any less or more masculine
Sure.
because of that?
Yeah. So I guess we can go on for hours on
Oh,
this
yeah.
one.
Forever.
So let me just say this. Where am I going with this? Why did I want to chat about this? Is just because I've had a few friends that are kind of like 7 years, 10 years into a marriage, and then recently divorced, and kind of like looked at who they are. And then one of my friends that looked and researched it a lot because he was shocked, right? Because he had a like best friend relationship with his wife, and it was not what he was expecting, and he was reading books and why females have affairs, whatever. And the book that he was sharing with me brought up all these topics, and I put it aside. That was like several years ago. Never really thought about it until recently, where I look at people are dating less nowadays, with the Tinder and these kind of dating apps. Thankfully, I got married way back before
Thank
that.
God, too.
But it's a
Yeah.
different world now. And
That's a good topic as well.
I want to talk.
I have so many
Okay, well,
stories.
tell me.
Which one on Tinder?
All of them.
Okay. All right.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if we're pushing male to be like more feminine, right, the quote unquote, and not care about because this is why I'm internalizing things, right? We grew up as boys, and I see it with my younger relatives that are just boys, they're jumping and fighting, and blah, blah, blah. We tamed them, right? I'm not saying they should keep fighting and then keep fighting to adulthood, but if that's the animal that they are, right? Jordan Peterson, I know you don't like him, but one of the things he says, and it's not him, that's basically some scientific, some research has said, is, a woman wants a man, with, masculine characteristics, including the potential for danger, right? In the sense that they can go off anytime and fight another man if there's harm or another animal, whatever the case is, right? Whatever whatever the thing that could keep the family safe or the female safe are the things that a female, subconsciously desires. So why I'm, a bit motivated to talk about this is right now we're saying it's awesome to be, touch with your feminine side. And I've really tried. And I think I am not bad at it, right? But I've been brainwashed, this is the way I should be, right? But if that's not what, females are really after and subconsciously, are we doing a disservice to men, right? And same as females, right? Are we doing a disservice to them by telling them this is what you should be, this is what society wants, but in the long run, what they're desiring, which is a long-lasting marriage, is not happening because of being a bit more feminine, and which consciously, logically sounds positive.
Yeah, it sounds like it's right.
It's right, but your wife is not attracted to you because you're a bit feminine, right? And they want a guy that can build stuff and take charge, whatever the traditional kind of definition of a a masculine male is, right? So that's the reason I just want to bring that up, and that's kind of the motivation for this topic.
Let me give you a short story on this, where it just hit me now.
Sure.
Which is, again, perspective and everything.
For
so
sure.
Personal story.
Yeah.
We were in our honeymoon in Malaysia, and we have to go somewhere for excursions, or as you know me, that to go somewhere. And my wife is taking a shower. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's running late. Let me iron her clothes, which is in my family unheard of. Men ironing women's clothes, like I haven't seen that growing up.
Yeah.
So it was like
that's because my wife makes me do that all the time.
So it's like, to me, I am doing like award-winning activities here, ironing my wife's clothes, and like this is like our honeymoon, the very early stage of the relationship. So she came out. I'm like, this is your clothes. I ironed it. Oh, okay. And she walked away. It hit me so hard. I'm like, where's the fireworks? Yeah. There has to be some kind of something. Yeah. So then later on, as we're heading to that excursion, I'm like, I ironed your clothes. Like I haven't seen that. My dad, my uncle, my grand, like I haven't seen in my family doing that ever. Mm-hmm. And it's unheard. This is like, my wife was like, my dad does that all the time, Timo, for my mom. My uncle. I'm like, really? So it hit me like, okay, to me, it was going out of my masculinity, if I may, to iron, and it's exceptional activity, whereas in some other household, it's a norm. Mm-hmm. It's a everyday thing.
Right.
So
again, it's your perception of masculinity. Yeah. It is perception at the end of the day.
I wouldn't, because my husband irons. He does the laundry. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't necessarily classify that as being feminine.
Sure.
Right? I remember the first time I went away I traveled for work, and my daughter was 5 years old and my son was 1. And I remember talking to my dad, who's in Jamaica, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to travel for work, going to be gone a few nights. And he's like, who's going to take care of the children? Their father? he can take, yeah. But again, it comes back to your culture, because he's in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. It's a completely different culture, way of life, right? Sure. But to me, him taking care of his children, that's not masculine or feminine. Sure. He's being a dad. That's a characteristic of a dad.
Maybe the
disclaimer, I've been ironing since.
Yeah. Well, I think really the thing is like you're right, because my dad is like, he cooks, right? He cooked most of the meals as I grew up. He also took care of us more than my mom did, because often my mom used to have to work in the evenings. So I saw a lot of the non-masculine, but he's a masculine,
exactly.
Right? Like he's strong as nails. Yes. He's like 73 or something, and he can still beat me. Like he's stronger than me in every which way. He's very, very handy. He never has, he's cried a couple times when people have passed, but like never cries, never shares his feelings, never shows affection. Like, so he does so he has a few characteristics that are masculine, and things that are not considered masculine. But I think it's balancing both and not just dismissing all of the masculine things, because I think in the long run there are, you know, a lot of females that are attracted to the masculine quote unquote characteristics.
I need what makes my husband masculine. I feel protected when he's around.
Sure.
So we went during COVID when, you know, we couldn't go anywhere. We rented a cottage, and I did some gummies. And I was like,
need a guide for
that. Right. And it was one that I don't know much about gummies, but it was one where I literally felt like I was.
We gotta do a podcast after doing gummies.
But the fact that the fact that my husband was there, despite how tripped out, I felt protected.
Sure.
Because he was there, and he's very masculine. So I don't think. Again, I don't think.
And these are the things.
Chores
but I think these are the things that like should also be considered. Like, you know, if you're a guy, work out, like, you know, be strong, whatever it is, right? Like, it's not like we can just put, you know, hundreds of thousands of years of our DNA and no longer valid. It's all about, you know, being a 2023 male, right? Like, I think there's elements that, you know, you should consider both ways. You know, and just because you do a few things to help around the house, if you're totally,
that's feminine.
Yeah. And if you're totally one way where all you're doing is you're just like a barbarian, you're just like a caveman, that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
And if you're totally on the other side, it probably won't fly either. So I think there's value to having some characteristics that are more masculine. At the same time, you know, you want to keep a marriage going, you got to also, you know, help out and you know,
I think everybody's balance is different.
Yeah.
Of combination of those two, every relationship, every person, every marriage, some has, if I may, 60-40.
Yeah.
Some could have 70-30. Some could have 10-90.
Yeah.
It's in everybody's relationship will define how, say, as an example you gave about your friend, went through divorce and was shocked to find out, she's more attracted to masculine. Their balance.
Well, it wasn't the first thing that came out.
No.
But like after
their
you
balance versus somebody else's balance could be different.
Yeah.
We had a one stream definition probably in the past.
Yeah. And I did
That is
Google.
changing.
I did Google masculine.
And what came up?
And it would be interesting. And I just didn't have time. I have an old dictionary at home.
Ooh.
And I would love to. And you know
How
what?
that
Whoever-
defines?
Yes.
I love
So
this.
if people you're
tangent.
watching, if you have an old dictionary, put in the comments what the definition of masculinity is in your dictionary at that time, because I guarantee you it's going to change from what it was 20
according
years ago.
to Wikipedia, a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with men and boys.
This is very politically
Yeah, we'll have
correct.
that.
And,
Google just said traditional definition of what something along the lines of boys and men. But I guarantee you, if you pull up like a 10-year-old Webster's printed dictionary, the definition is going to be different than what it is today.
Sure, I believe that.